Hello, my name is Roisin and welcome back to my channel. So it is April now, which means we have finished the first quarter of the year and it is time for the quarter year crisis book tag. This is a book tag that I created last year because I noticed there was the mid-year freakout tag and the end of the year tag, but there was nothing about the first 3 months of the year. And so I thought it would be a good idea to have one to reflect on our first quarter of reading, because it's always good to check in, I think, and because it also allows us to shine a little spotlight on some of those books we read earlier in the year. I think I and a lot of other people can have a tendency to make the books that end up being our favourite. Often there is a recency bias, which means that those books at the first 3 months of the year don't necessarily get their dues. Also, if you have goals, I think it's always good to check in with your goals as often as possible. I noticed that was something that I was not doing last year, and so having something like this as a marker I think is really good. So I based this tag off those 2 other tags I talked about, but I put some of my own questions in there as well, and I will of course put all of the questions in the description if you would like to do this yourself. I would love to see it, so please do make sure to tag me when you make the video, or if you make post on Instagram, tag me as well. You can also do it in the comments down below, and I will of course respond to you there. So the first question is, how many books have you read so far this year? And the answer for me is 26, which is fewer than I wanted, but I am supposed to be not focusing on a target this year, and whilst I haven't set myself an actual target, I've kind of got a vague target in my head, which is 10 books a month, and I think I still need to work on like eradicating those targets from my brain, because I don't think they're necessary. Question number 2 is, have you already found a book you think might be a 2022 favourite? And I have, but the question does also say, like, if you haven't found a favourite already, if you haven't found a book that you think will be one of your favourites, what is your favourite book you've read so far? My question last year assumed that it wasn't 5 stars, but I don't know how other people rate. You might rate a book 5 stars and it not be a favourite book. At the same time, I struggled to get 10 5-star books in a year, even reading 100 books, because I seem to be stingy with my 5 stars, but you might not be. But regardless, anyway, I do have a favourite book that I've read so far this year. It is On Beauty by Zadie Smith. I raved about this book. I read it in a vlog, which when I was also reading Howard's End and The Remains of the Day, because they are books that remind me of each other. I read White Teeth by Zadie Smith a few years ago, and I really loved that, but I wasn't convinced I was going to love On Beauty. And the reason for that was that I really enjoyed White Teeth, and then it was the ending that really sealed it for me. And I didn't know if that would be able to happen again, but actually the opposite happened almost. I read the first 10 pages of On Beauty and I was like, this is my favourite book that I have read in a very long time. She's just such a masterful writer, but also such a fun writer. On Beauty tells the story of Howard, who is a professor, and his family. He is a white British man who is working in a university in the United States, and he's married to a black American woman, and they lived in London for a while, and then they lived in this well-off, like, fancy liberal arts university town, and it's about his children's experience growing up, their class and race and how those things intersect, and also about academia and ivory towers and liberal hypocrisy and all sorts of things. Freedom of speech in universities, which it was written in 2005, 2010 I think, but very relevant still, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so wonderfully written. Like I said, Zadie Smith has such a lightness of touch in terms of her writing, which means that even though she's dealing with a lot of different topics, it never feels heavy-handed or outside of the characters. It feels like it's coming organically from within, feel like very real, fleshed out people, incredibly flawed but wonderful at the same time. And she's so good at thinking about politics and philosophy and ideas without it feeling like pretentious or overly bogged down, and her writing just sort of sweeps you along for these big chunky books. Both On Beauty and White Teeth are quite long books, but they are absolutely worth the read. I've been talking about doing a whole review because, as you can tell, I could probably rant on about this for at least 15 minutes, so I will maybe do that in the future. And the next one is any 1-star books / least favourite books of the year, and yes, I do have one I read in March and hated, and that was The Neighbourhood by Mario Vargas Llosa. So I went to Peru in March and I decided I wanted to read a Peruvian writer, and when you Google Peruvian writer, Vargas Llosa is the first one who comes up. He's like the grandfather of modern Peruvian literature. And so I thought I would read one of his books, despite the fact that I had tried to read his like seminal masterpiece work, Conversations in the Cathedral, a few years ago and given up a few pages in. But it was bad. I really didn't like it. I think in part potentially the translation is to blame. It's hard to know. I speak very, very little Spanish and definitely not enough to read a novel in it. The writing was just so clunky and awkward and difficult to read, and it felt like it was written by a first-year university student in a creative writing class in terms of the like standard of the writing. Like, it didn't have a lot of polish and it didn't feel easy to read. It felt very, very clunky and awkward. But it did remind me kind of books that I've read that are more in a thriller genre from the 80s by men. There was that very much vibe of it. The Neighbourhood is a political thriller set during the time of Fujimori dictatorship in the 90s in Peru, about journalists and like exposés of rich men and the political ways that things are shut down, and the like control of that. Kind of supposed to be dark and gritty, but it always felt very performative. It felt like nothing that bad was actually going to happen. It had so many slurs in it, so many slurs all the time, like particularly against mixed race people in Peru. I don't think anyone wants to be called a mutt or a mixed breed anywhere in the world. Slurs, and not just those, slurs about Asian people, slurs about women, just a lot. And the misogyny was rampant in this book and really annoying. Every woman was just in love with all the men, and there was a sapphic love affair that happened, but it felt very much voyeuristic from a male pleasure perspective, to the point where they end up having a threesome with one of the women's husbands, and it feels like and it felt that it like filled no plot point, had absolutely no relevance to the plot. It was just shit. It was just really shit. I really didn't like it. So the next question is your most read genre so far. So I'm going to go on Storygraph, but I'm pretty sure that the answer is literary fiction. Literary fiction is, generally speaking, my most read, that or historical fiction. But despite kind of wanting to read more historical fiction this year, I haven't been reading as much of it as I wanted to. Yeah, so literary fiction is far and away, then contemporary, then historical. I've only read 4 historical novels so far this year. It's even arguable how much some of those are historical novels. So definitely want to focus on reading more. The next question is a book that surprised you. And like I said earlier, I wasn't expecting to fall head over heels for On Beauty in the way that I did. So I guess that one surprised me. But other ones that surprised me were, unfortunately, The Furrows by Namwali Sapel. I read The Old Drift by Namwali Sapel, which actually reminds me of Zadie Smith in terms of the writing. Absolutely loved it, thought it was fabulous. Had heard mixed things, no, mostly negative things about this book, about the first half being great and then something happening in the middle that changes the way the book is and people not liking it anymore. And I thought maybe it's just a bit weird. A lot of the books that I love are like more polarizing than super popular. But no, I agreed entirely with the popular position, and unfortunately I was so excited to read this because I thought Sapel could become one of my new favourite writers. But that didn't happen with this book. I will still read whatever she puts out next, but didn't happen for me, that one. A book that came out in 2023 already, January, February or March 2023, that you want to read but you haven't yet. For me, this is going to be Age of Vice by Deepti Kapoor. This is the one that I mentioned in my anticipated releases in December, and I was really excited for it, and then I have seen so many people talking about it on Bookstagram, and there have been mostly very good reviews, so that makes me more excited for it. And then on top of that, I also have been really like into a romp and a big kind of plotty but not too focused on plot, like with good writing and humour and vibe and like setting really focused on, but like there is a plot and there is something happening. I've been really enjoying something a bit more pacey. I don't know, it's not all plotty books, but there is something like epic, not epic, kind of adventure-y. What else? That's rompy books. I've been really into rompy books these past 3 months, and I think Age of Vice sounds like it will be that. Set in New Delhi, a speeding Mercedes jumps the curb and in the blink of an eye 5 people are dead. It's a rich man's car, but when the dust settles there's no rich man at all, just a shell-shocked servant who cannot explain the strange series of events that led to this crime. Nor can he foresee the dark drama that's about to unfold. Deftly shifting through time and perspective in contemporary India, Age of Vice is an epic, action-packed story propelled by seductive wealth, startling corruption and bloodthirsty violence of the Wadia family, loved by some, loathed by others, feared by all. So yeah, it sounds like it was going to be exactly the kind of plotty book that I've really been enjoying so far this year. The next question is one goal you made that you're succeeding at. Now, technically speaking, this year I did not make any reading goals. I had some kind of intentions, but they weren't set in stone, they weren't firm. So I have a whole video about talking about reading goals and why I'm not setting any reading goals, or why I'm kind of gesturing towards reading goals rather than like having proper reading goals. I will leave that in the cards above. Something about not sticking to them, never paying attention to them, so what's the point? And also trying to be a bit looser with my reading this year, rather than rigidly focusing on something that I think I want at the beginning of the year, trying to combine my need for a plan to actually do any reading with a desire to read what I want. Anyway, that's why I didn't really set any reading goals. I did intend to borrow fewer books and make fewer themed reading vlogs, and so focus on the books that I own, and I think I've done a good job of that because I only have one book from the library at the moment, although I did take all of the ones I could find back before I went to Peru, so there is that, because I didn't read all of them. But yeah, borrowing fewer books and focusing on the books I own. I actually did set myself a list of 24 books that I want to read this year from my personal TBR, so both physical, ebook and audiobook. Middlemarch by George Eliot, which I've read. Possession by A.S. Byatt, which is the May-June book for the Big Book Book Club, so I will be reading that in the next 3 months. Big Book Book Club, linked in the cards above, Discord in the description if you want to join us. We read one big book every 2 months, and Possession will be with Kieran from Katie Books. Then we have The Sin Eater. I haven't written down who that's by on my list, but I haven't read it. And Night All Blood is Black by David Diop. No, so we've got one. Black and British by David Olusoga. I haven't finished yet, but I am nearly finished. A few hours off finishing that one. I am listening to it with my boyfriend. The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein, which is the July and August pick for the Big Book Book Club, so we'll be reading that too. The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. I have read Love in the Big City by Sang-Young Park, Girls Against God by Jenny Val, Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe by Fanny Flagg, which I DNF'd. I DNF'd that book, but I'm counting it as finished. Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. I've read that one as well. Hagseed by Margaret Atwood, Feral by George Monbiot, Perfume the Story of a Murderer, Imperium by Ryszard Kapuscinski, Makioka Sisters, that was book 1, January-February book for the Big Book Book Club, War and Peace, which I'm halfway through. I'm halfway through that at the moment. Washington Black by Essie Edigu and Beneath the Lion's Gaze by Marza Mengize, The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton, Profit Over People by Noam Chomsky, Superior, The Return of Race Science by Angela Saini, The Aeneid by Shadi Barsh, Bangkok Wakes to Rain by Pichaya Subhantad, The Rabbit Hutch by Tess Gunty, and The Book of Blood by Vicky Keeper. So I've read 9 out of 24 of the books in the first 3 months, and obviously I should have read 6 in the first 3 months, and I've read 9. So that is pretty good going, I think, actually. The only goals I've set myself, I think I'm doing pretty well at. The next one is one goal you made that you need to focus on, so a goal that you've not paying attention to as much as you want to. And as I said, I didn't really make goals, but as I said at the beginning of this video, I am trying to intentionally read less this year, and I think I am reading less because I rewatched my version of this from last year before filming this video, and in that one I'd read 25 books by the time I filmed the video. Today I've read 26, but I filmed that video at the beginning of March because I wanted to give other people a chance to notice it, to make their own videos, and this is the end of March, so I'm assuming that I got more than one book read in the 3 weeks of March or whatever. So I have read fewer books than I'd read this time last year, but I don't think I'm doing it intentionally. I started trying to mood read at the beginning of this year, and so for the first like 10 days I read 0 books. Like I said, I need a plan. If I don't know what's potentially on my list of books to read, I won't read anything. So mood reading entirely doesn't work for me. I am reading more big books though, so maybe that is true, and like Demon Copperhead and On Beauty were both very big books. I also enjoyed Middlemarch. I enjoyed the Makioka Sisters. I'm enjoying War and Peace. So like pages wise, I might be at a similar amount to last year. I'm still giving myself guilt about not reading as much. I'm, you know, I'm not Catholic, but I'm raised by ex-Catholics, so I feel like they've passed me down. Like, I've got some of that Catholic guilt by proxy, and I need to work on that with myself. The final one is new to you, booktubers or bookstagrammers or booktokers from 2022, 2023 that you'd recommend. And unfortunately, I don't have any book influencers of any kind at the moment. I haven't found anyone new. I'm actually behind on watching people that I watch regularly because I've been super busy and I've been in Peru. I keep saying that. You're going to get sick of me talking about Peru, but it was amazing. All of this to say, I haven't really been like discovering people. I've just been with the same people that I already watch in the recent past. So if there is anyone that you would recommend, do let me know in the comments down below. I mean, there's a good chance I'll have heard of them because I am in the space, but I definitely would like to hear of more people. Anyone who makes good reading vlogs, thoughtful book analysis kind of videos, not necessarily book reviews. I don't tend to watch that as much, but like when they make reading vlogs, there is some sort of analysis and thought, and in the reviews in that more casual format, that's kind of more where I feel that's what I enjoy watching. The only person who is a new YouTuber that I watch is Caroline Winkler, and I really enjoy her stuff. I've really been enjoying watching her stuff. So if you know any people in the book space who are similar to Caroline Winkler, then I would love to hear from you, so let me know in the comments down below. And thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Like I said at the start, if you would like to do the tag, please do it. I would really appreciate it. Please tag me in it if you do, and I will see you again very soon. I put out new videos twice a week, so please remember to subscribe, and thank you for watching. Bye bye.